This here is the GTA Online tactic tier list, where we will be talking about the latest and greatest tactics you can use to destroy your enemies. Whether said enemy is a griefer, a grinder, a tryhard, or a filthy RP player, you will find something you can use. I'll be your tutor today, me, GTA Sans, and you will be my viewer. This video was brought to you by intellectual property theft.
So get in there and stop being a backline bitch.
With that being said, today I'm going to rank my favourite tactics you can use to fight other players in GTA Online in tier list format. With that being said, let's get into the tier list. Firstly, we're going to take a look at what I like to call Big Slow Plane Syndrome. Now, Big Slow Plane Syndrome is exactly what it says on the tin. Give yourself a big plane, one that's slow, and then put it in the skies of Los Santos. What do you think will happen exactly? Yeah, that's right, either a jet or a Mark II will just simply shoot it out of the sky. Now, because it's big and because it's slow, there's not much the plane can do to counter these other vehicles. Realistically, anything a big slow plane can do, a smaller, faster one can do better. When we look at things like the Alkonost or the Bombushka, and then compare them to vehicles such as the Laser or the Starling, Paro or B11, they're absolutely in a league of their own. Please avoid these noob bait planes. Where was I? Next up we have the Rhino tank. Now you see, back in the day this vehicle was actually quite good, mainly because there was almost no vehicles to counter it. Of course you could go and get the Laser in the military base, but that was more hassle than it was ever worth. You see, what made the Rhino tank back in the day so good was that you could phone it from Pegasus. This means you can spawn it in at your request and then drive it and kill people around the map. But there was one slight issue that made this vehicle quite overpowered. You see, if you're not aware, back when GTA Online first got released, there was no different markers for different vehicles. By that I mean, when you look at a player in a tank on the minimap, it won't show up as a tank icon as it does nowadays. Back then, it'd literally just show you as a regular player. So this means that when you're turning a corner and you see a player, you don't know whether they're going to be on the ground with an assault rifle or in a Rhino tank. And people kind of abuse this fact. Nowadays, however, with the likes of the Oppressor Mark 1, Mark 2, Laser, B11, Starling, Orbital Cannon, yeah, this tank is kind of useless nowadays. Because you can phone in the likes of the Oppressor Mark 2 straight to you, there is always an on-hand counter you can use to kill the tank, which kinda makes it useless. What's worse, it only takes a couple of rockets to kill. So overall, it's kind of just a sitting duck and overly useless. Next up we have the Arena War game mode. Now this is where I would insert footage of an active Arena War game. If I had any. Now you see, just like my love for Rockstar games, this Arena War mode is absolutely dead. At first you could really see the potential of this game mode, but as time has went on, everyone's kinda forgotten about it, so there's really no point playing it. It can be fun if you find a full lobby, but the chances of that are lower than Rockstar fixing GTA Online. Next up we have modding. Now the thing is with modding, it technically is the most effective tactic in this tier list, but the thing is, if you do mod, you are basically a giant rat and should be removed from the game. Now obviously this isn't a legitimate tactic and this is why it's at the bottom of the tier list, but the fact that so many people mod, you might as well call it a tactic at this point. Rockstar, please fix your game. In the light of telling Rockstar to fix their game, we can also talk about God Mode glitches. Now this is basically the console equivalent of the modding problem. God Mode glitches can be done by anyone at any time, very easily for what it offers. You can gain complete immunity to all sources of damage with a quick simple 5-minute glitch. This is an absolute joke, and if you are found doing a God Mode glitch, the streets will consider you maidenless. Next up we have the Mark II Ape. Now you see, there are multiple ways to use the Mark II. You can use it upside down. You can use it quite smartly by weaving in and out of the buildings and using chaff. But the Mark II Ape does not use any of these tactics. The Mark II Ape simply drives forward and presses the missile button. They hear the beep 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 of their lock-on system. It doesn't matter what target they're firing at, whether it's friend or foe, they will simply drive forward, Mark II Ape style, and attack anyone they see. You'll see this tactic performed by the likes of the basic griefer and mindless tryhard. And despite the Mark II being overpowered, these players are actually quite easy to kill since they don't know how to utilise the Mark II effectively. Overall, these players are actually quite bad, but because they've been told the Mark II is the best vehicle in the game, they'll simply hop on and expect a 1000 KD. But even though the Mark II is most definitely overpowered, and it requires very little brain cells to make use of, the Mark II Ape simply doesn't even meet this basic requirement. Overall, it's quite sad, but shoot them out of the sky whenever you see one. Now, as we go up a tier, we can talk about the Zentorno in reverse. Now, you see, this used to be an amazing tactic back in the day. When the Zentorno first released, people realised the fact that the Zentorno does in fact have no back window. Now, because of this, you can drive backwards into an enemy and shoot your gun at them, and if they're using anything other than an explosive weapon, they won't be able to shoot you back. So back in the likes of 2014 and 2015, you would often see players driving around the streets of Los Santos backwards, shooting their micro SMG and combat pistols at anyone unfortunate enough to come across these players. Now, of course, nowadays, it's quite easy to kill these players, since of course people have just realised you can shoot an RPG at them, or simply spawn in the Mark II and wipe them off the face of the earth. The Zentorno still is quite fun, and it can be used to get a funny kill on someone, but nowadays, it's not really a serious PvP tactic. Next up we have the Orbital Cannon. Now, just like modding and God mode glitches, technically the Orbital Cannon is a very effective tactic. However, the issue with the Orbital Cannon, like modding and God mode glitches, if you use it, you are a rat basically. There are players that make the Orbital Cannon their sole method of killing people in PvP, and these are the biggest rats. However, I will forgive you if you want to get a cheeky Orbital Cannon kill on that Mark II Ape that's griefing the lobby. Go ahead and do that, but of course you also have to spend 500,000 or 750,000 if you simply want to get one kill with this thing. And to be quite honest, that's a very poor return on investment. Now, this is why the Orbital Cannon is obviously really effective, but also quite useless. You can get one kill in 45 minutes for 750,000. Or you can buy a Mark II, a laser, or, you know, use skill to get many kills over the span of an entire play session. You choose which one is better. Now, next up we have simply driving a car with a player inside into a gas station. Now, most people won't fall for this, but if you can get them into your vehicle, you can drive them to one of the many gas stations littered around Los Santos, and then simply drive into the thing. Now, what will happen is that you will kill yourself from the explosion, but because you drove into the gas station, when your passenger also gets killed by the explosion, it will count as your kill. Now, as I said, most people won't fall for this, but if you can get them to do this, you will be immortalized as the greatest trickster of all time. Next up, we have job teleporting around the map. Now, if you're not aware of this glitch, you can highlight over a selected job on the pause menu map. You make sure to host the session, and then quickly spam the cancel button and then spawn where that job is placed on the map. Now, this is fine if you want to get to a location quickly, but people will often abuse this tactic in PvP to escape from fights. And by escape from fights, I mean completely avoid fights altogether. You will drive over to their location, they will spawn in a job, you will chase them to that job, and they will spawn back where they were. It's an absolute nightmare. When you realise a player is doing this, there is absolutely no point in chasing them, because they will continue the chase forever and ever and ever. Avoid these players altogether. There is absolutely no point in engaging with them. Next up, we have the homing launcher and the flare gun. Now, if you're not aware, the homing launcher and the flare gun have this unique property when they're used together. You see, if you use a plane and a missile locks onto you, you can use the flares to direct the homing missile away by locking it onto the flare. Now, this little tactic also works with the handheld flare gun itself. If a homing launcher is shot at you on ground, you can pull out your flare gun, shoot it away from you, and the missile, even if it was directly pointed at you, will diverge its trajectory completely and lock onto the flare. This is a great way to avoid getting hit by a homing missile. And if you're quick enough, you can have the homing missile completely change its path and arc downwards back onto the ground where the flare has been shot, perhaps at another player, confusing them completely. This tactic can be quite hard to pull off, but if you do get it right, it's an absolute flex on your opponent. You should definitely try and get a couple of kills this way. It's really, really fun. Now, next up we have Base. Now, this is a community-created game mode where you will 1v1 players outside the Fort Sankuta military base. What makes this game mode so unique is that you will have to learn the spawns in the area and preemptively shoot a rocket or aim your sniper at the opponent and kill them before they can spawn in properly. Now, this is where the skill comes in Base. To have the raw aim skill to quickly swivel around and kill them before they can spawn in. Whilst it does take quite a bit of skill to be good at Base, the issue with Base is that, how should I put this? If you do play Base, chances are you will become an emo. And I really don't mean this lightly. If you play Base, you will become a GTA Online emo. What I mean by this is that you will listen to really bad music. You will often wear stupid face paint. And overall, you'll be a community laughingstock. Whilst Base can be fun, is it really worth risking the chances of becoming an emo? Next up we have the Buzzard. Now, this vehicle, like many others, was quite good back in the day, and still is, to be fair. Now, against ground targets, the Buzzard still is quite good. You can spawn this thing in wherever you want with Secure Save on the interaction menu, and with a bit of skill can kill ground targets quite easily. But of course, the player you're fighting can just as easily spawn in a stronger vehicle, like the Oppressor Mark 1 or Mark 2 to take it down. This is where the Buzzard falters. The problem is, of course, there are so many other vehicles that are so overpowered and can kill this thing in one missile, it can be quite hard to fight certain vehicles and players. Overall, the Buzzard still is quite good, but it's sadly been overshadowed by better vehicles and better helicopters that have come out since its release. Now, we could talk about noob bait. Now, what is noob bait exactly? Well, basically, it's quite simple. You will dress yourself up as one of the default outfits you will start with in GTA Online. You will walk around the streets at a low level with a basic pistol, walk up to a tryhard unsuspecting of you as a great player. Because you're simply an unsuspecting noob player, they probably won't kill you. Like a cute puppy, the noob simply just wants to see what's going on. But of course, you aren't a noob. As Sun Tzu once said, if you want to get a quick 1-0 in GTA Online, pretend to be a noob. Or rather, act strong when you're weak and act weak when you're strong. Confuse your opponent and get that epic 1-0. Now with the next one, we're dropping a nuke on Los Santos. Not the orbital cannon, mind you, that nuke, as we've established, is for rats. This one is for the chads. Grab yourself a cargo bob, grab yourself an NPC car off the street, slap 5 stickies on that bad boy, drive it to your cargo bob, pick the NPC car up with the cargo bob crane and fly it over your target. Now you may see where we're going with this. Find your unsuspecting target, fly right over them, make sure you're right above them, then drop the car and activate the sticky bombs as it hits them. They won't even see it coming. Now this one obviously isn't the most effective thing since you can be shot out of the sky very easily by a Mark II. Now of course we don't care about our KD in this, we don't care about the kills, we're going for style. And there's nothing more stylish than dropping a car bomb on your enemy from a cargo bomb. Next up we have drone trolling, obviously pioneered by the late great Astro Soup. If you have purchased the upgrade, you can go to your terabyte and use your drone. Fly this thing over to the tryhard griefing the lobby, and zap him with the taser. Watch as he flails on the ground like a very sad fish out of water, completely helpless to get up, and then explode the drone over him for an epic 1-0. You'll not only get the kill, but you'll humiliate and even possibly anger this poor target. This is so sad. What makes this quite fun and pretty effective is the fact that you can do this over and over again from relative safety in the terabyte, since you can't get killed whilst you're inside of it. This is a very fun tactic if you want to perform a bit of trolling. Next up we have the Avenger turret on autopilot. Now the Avenger has a very unique ability. You can hover the Avenger over an area in mid-air, go to your interaction menu and set the Avenger to autopilot. What this will do is allow your Avenger to float in place in mid-air at one altitude. What's good is that you can make use of this by going into the back of your Avenger, then activating your turret station and then firing down at the players below on the streets. killing them over and over and over again. Because the Avenger is so armoured and can take so many rockets, you can get many kills before someone takes you down. Of course, you are a completely sitting duck in the sky whilst you're doing this, but the armour on the Avenger should allow you enough time to get a few kills on some ground targets. This can be overpowered against certain players, but anyone smart enough will quickly get their jet or call a Mark II and shoot you out of the sky. You can, however, make this more effective by using a friend to pilot the Avenger for you, since of course you can dodge rockets more effectively. Next up we have the RPG spam. Now, the issue with the RPG is that you kinda don't need to reload it. By that I mean, the one thing balancing the RPG is the fact that you have to reload it after every shot. Just imagine if you had a magazine filled with 25 rockets in your RPG. That would be quite overpowered, wouldn't it? But of course, we don't have to imagine that. We live in that world. By that, I mean if you shoot your RPG, quickly switch to another weapon then switch back to your RPG, the RPG will be automatically reloaded. So what that means is that you can quickly do this cycle over and over again, spamming rockets at your enemy over and over and over again. What makes this worse is that you can quickly buy ammo from the interaction menu, meaning that you've basically got a fully automatic rocket launcher and infinite ammo to go alongside it. You see why this might be an issue. Now, this is obviously very effective against armoured targets as a ground target yourself. However, where this becomes a massive issue is when you're using it against other ground targets. Obviously, to have a fair 1v1 or a fair battle, you can use things like the sniper or assault rifle, or even the RPG as it was intended. But obviously, the RPG was never intended to be fully automatic. My advice would be to save this tactic for places where it's appropriate.
Bah.
Next up, we have what I like to call the Deluxo Splat. Now, the Deluxo Splat is very simple. You simply get your Deluxo, hover it over a person you want to attack, and then drop it out of the sky on top of them, making them go splat. You can also make this a bit more effective by putting sticky bombs on the side of the vehicle when you drop it down on top of the person. This is quite funny. No one ever expects the Deluxo floating above them to drop down and splat upon them. This is great for unaware people who are maybe doing sniper 1v1s. You can really perform a little bit of trolling with this technique. Try it out yourself and see if you can get any good results. Next up we have truck sniping. Now, this one requires a friend. Simply grab the biggest truck you can find, have your friend drive it around the city, and you stand in the back with your sniper in hand. Now, this is really fun. You can go around driving around the city, firing at people, trying to get some really good shots with your sniper. Of course, it's not too effective, since of course you can be blown up by anything, but we're not talking about effectiveness here. We're talking about the fun factor, and definitely sniping on the back of a truck with your friends can be really fun. Trying to get a Presser Mark II sniped on the back of a moving vehicle can be very difficult at times, but if you manage to get that shot off, you will be a legend forever. Next up, we have the Flare Gun Faggio. The Faggio by itself is a very good vehicle, don't get me wrong, but the Faggio itself, it doesn't really take many rockets, it doesn't have any countermeasures, so you kinda need to make some defense for yourself. Now, of course, like we saw in the Flare Gun homing missile tactic, you can use your Flare Gun to redirect homing missiles. If you're on your Faggio, you can use your Flare Gun to redirect rockets that are coming your way, which makes the Faggio, or any vehicle for that matter, much more defensible and much more likely to survive against these types of vehicles. Now, this is paired greatly, especially when you have a friend alongside you. One can use sticky grenades against the Oppressor Mark II, and the other can use the Flare Gun, redirecting homing missiles coming their way. It's very funny to see the Oppressor Mark II fall to the hands of a Faggio user. Very sad indeed. Next up, we have Jet Thermal. This one is especially cancer. Now, to start off with, I will explain an issue I have with jets. Oftentimes, when you're flying in a jet, it can be quite hard to find players on the ground. Because you're so high up in the sky, it can be hard to find where they are. So, with the Jet Thermal glitch, if you weren't aware, it basically does this job for you. Now, what this does is that you will be able to use the thermal helmet, which highlights targets in an orange glow, whenever you're in a jet. Now, normally you're not allowed to use the helmet whilst in a jet, But thanks to Rockstar's oversight, there is, of course, a glitch where you can equip your thermal helmet inside the jet. Now with this, you have the benefits of the jet, where you can dive bomb with ultra powerful cannons against ground targets, and you have the usability of the helmet, where you'll be able to find targets very easily. This paired together is a very deadly combo, and one that is considered overpowered by most players. Whilst this is very effective, it is kind of overpowered and is a glitch after all, so maybe it shouldn't be used. The usability and the effectiveness of this glitch cannot be understated. It's very powerful. Just be considerate when you use it, because it's very overpowered. Save it for the targets that actually do deserve it.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Next up, we have the Scramjet. Now, I personally love the Scramjet. You can use it in very effective ways. Now personally, I think the Scramjet is most effective against ground targets. Because of how the Scramjet can jump over targets and point down at them on the ground, you are very hard to hit. So with the Scramjet, you can absolutely farm ground targets without them even getting one hit upon you. Where this Scramjet falters slightly is when you're fighting things such as the Oppressor Mark II. Now whilst if you're a smart Scramjet user, you definitely can go toe to toe against them. 9 times out of 10, it can be quite hard to fight against them. Of course, they have countermeasures while you have none. You don't even have any armor to survive against a couple of rockets. You will die in one hit, whilst they can use chaff and block your homing missiles altogether. Now, of course, whilst the Scramjet does basically have the equivalent of Oppressor Mark II missiles, chances are you will be able to kill the Oppressor Mark II. This one is definitely fun, and if you want to look at someone better than me using the Scramjet, be sure to check out Mayonnaise. Not the food product, the YouTuber. He is basically the Scramjet expert. And if you want to get some tips and tricks on how to use this better, be sure to check him out. Link is, of course, in the description. Next up, we have one of my personal favourites, the Sticky Bomb Torpedo. Now, what is the Sticky Bomb Torpedo exactly? Well, what a great question. Let's take the Oppressor Mark I for example for this tactic. Because the Oppressor Mark I has a very nice jet engine on the back, you can use this to your advantage. Place a few sticky bombs on the front of your Oppressor Mark I, fly over to your target, and then launch the Oppressor Mark I at your target with the boost. And when the Mark I makes contact, you blow the stickies up, achieving maximum damage. This one can be kinda tricky to pull off, but when you do pull it off, it truly is a great feeling. Next up, we have Ghost Organization pretending to be an NPC. Now this one is for you sneaky ninja types. So, you will go off radar, dress up as an NPC, grab an NPC car, and then drive around the streets as if you were an unsuspecting NPC. If you drive up to your target whilst driving like an NPC, they won't think otherwise. Of course they won't. You won't ever suspect an NPC to kill you. You can use a number of weapons to get that epic kill on that player, such as the heavy revolver or sticky grenades. But whatever you choose, they will be absolutely embarrassed. There's nothing worse than being killed by an NPC. Be sure to implement this every now and again because it can be very funny. Next up, we have the MOC cab. If you remember the Zentorno in reverse tactic, this is basically the 7-foot big brother of this tactic. If you have purchased the MOC, spawn it in with the interaction menu. Grab the MOC cab, the front part of the vehicle if you weren't aware, unhitch it from the back of the trailer and drive away by itself. Now, this one is very good. Now, if you weren't aware, the MOC cab is one of the most durable vehicles in the entire game. Now, because of this, and because of the fact that the MOC cab has no rear view window, you can use this to absolutely demolish the entire lobby. Just like how you could reverse against players in the Zentorno and fire at them completely safe from bullets. You will also be able to do this with the MOC, but you will also be completely safe from explosives too. Whereas with the Zentorno, you will be killed by one rocket. The MOC cab will take many. This can also be used to fight against the Oppressor Mark IIs. Because of course the MOC cab takes so many rockets, you can drive around the streets throwing sticky bombs at the Mark II all day long if you so wish. And chances are, you will kill the Mark II before they will even get close to killing you. The MOC cab is very effective. The only downside to the MOC cab is that it's quite big and it can kind of be quite slow at times. Because it's so clunky, you won't be able to get into some spots like the Night Shark, for example, could get into. But with that being said, the MOC cab is definitely one of the most effective vehicles in the game, and you should definitely make use of it if you're in a position to do so. Next up, we have my personal favourite, RNG. Now, if you're not aware what RNG is, simply it is a team deathmatch where you're only able to use assault rifles. What makes this so good is the fact that this is the fairest fight you can probably have in GTA Online. The only thing that's being tested in an RNG match is positional awareness and pure aim skill. Better yet, you can force the weapons players can use because it's a team deathmatch setting. You won't have anyone using the orbital cannon against you here. You won't have an Oppressor Mark II being pulled out by a salty player. All you will have is a completely fair fight. Now this is, in my opinion, probably the best place to have PvP in GTA Online. If you're looking to have fair fights away from the Oppressor Mark II and the orbital cannon and God mode glitches, this is the place for you.
Baba Booey.
Next up, we have Maze Bank sniping. Now, because of where Maze Bank is situated and the fact that it's the tallest building in the game, you naturally have a great sightline over the entirety of the city. You can use this to your advantage. Pull out your sniper and try and shoot down jets, Oppressor Mark II's, helicopters that fly by. You can also use this against ground targets. Because you're so high up, it can be quite hard to find where you are. You can get many kills, perhaps even a 3-0.
3-0.
Before they will even realise what's going on. What's better, if you have the Maze Bank office, you'll be able to spawn at the spot whenever you want. You can spawn at your office and then go to the roof through the elevator. And from there, you will always have a great spot to snipe from. Not only is it very effective, it's really fun. Try it out if you haven't tried it before. Now, onto our final tier. It's been a long journey, but now we're here. We are going to be looking at the best of the best, the creme de la creme of GTA Online tactics. Now, to start off with, we have the half track with no window plating. Now, just like the MOC cab, this is very similar. The half track is very durable and will take many rockets to blow up. Also, you will be able to reverse against targets and shoot them from behind. But what makes the half track a bit more effective is the fact that the front windows are also bulletproof, meaning the only way you can shoot someone out of the half track is by shooting from the side windows. You are completely immune to bullets from the front, meaning you are much more maneuverable since you are driving forward instead of backwards. And also, not to mention, you still also have the gun on the back. You can use a friend to shoot down Oppressor Mark II's with this thing, whilst you throw stickies from the front. It's very good, and better yet, it's a personal vehicle you can store at your garage, meaning you will be able to drive into your garage and repair it on the fly. Whereas with the MOC, there is no such option. This one is very good and should be utilised if you're able to do so. Very nice, indeed. Next up, we have the Scarab tank shunt boost. Now, this one is a very weird one. The Scarab, if you weren't aware, has an addition called the Shunt boost. What this does is that you will be able to dodge left or right with the Scarab tank. Now, the Scarab tank kinda works in a very weird way. Not only can you dodge left or right on the ground, you can dodge left or right mid-air. I don't know how the physics works on this one, but as you can see on screen, if you're in the air and putting your car upwards to the right, for example, if you dodge to the right, you will go up. If you dodge to the left, you will go down. With this technique, you can use your turtle tank to fly in the skies of Los Santos. And not only that, you can use it as a weapon to fight jets in the sky. It's absolutely insane. The absolute best part about this tactic is the utter ridiculousness about it. It's literally a turtle tank flying in the sky. A good friend of mine, SaucyKakes, is an expert with this technique. If you want to look at some insane Scarab footage, definitely go over to check his channel. Next up, we have a new addition, Amani Tech. Now, Amani Tech is an absolute game changer in my opinion. It combines the durability of something like a Night Shark, whilst including a whole new addition altogether, the Missile Lock-On Jammer. Now, of course, The Oppressor Mark II is arguably one of the most infamous and one of the most talked about vehicles in the game. People have been asking for a counter to this vehicle for years, but now of course with Amani Tech, we do have that counter. Because you can take many rockets before dying, and you can't be locked on by rockets at all, you've basically got the perfect kryptonite to the Oppressor Mark II. Not only that, it is also a great counter to any vehicle that relies on missiles to fight. Make sure you definitely have an Amani Tech vehicle in your garage for these moments. You can of course still use the Night Shark or the MOC cab, but you cannot deny the effectiveness and the usability of Amani Tech vehicles. There is simply nothing else like it in the game. Next up, we have the Upside Down Mark II. Now this, in my opinion, is the absolute best tactic in the game. Now, where the Oppressor Mark II is often considered a skillless vehicle, one that is very easy to use, this technique flips that idea on its head completely. The age-old question we have in GTA Online is what we should use against the Oppressor Mark II, the most overpowered vehicle in the game. Well, my answer to that is, what if we took the Oppressor Mark II and turned it upside down? Yes, so this technique is very simple to pull off, but it can be quite hard to master. First off, you will obviously grab your Oppressor Mark II, then fly over to any building, a larger one is preferred. Then you'll basically kind of just like grind your Oppressor Mark II up against a building until you go upside down. From here, you will use your left analog stick to keep yourself upright. With how the Oppressor Mark II works, it will fight against the controls to make sure it goes back to the way it was, and of course away from being upside down. What you will have to do is fight against the momentum it's turning towards to go back upright, and keep yourself upside down and keep it from turning over. What you can also do is press the right bumper or R1 to use the brake of the vehicle, and what this does in a really weird way is give the Oppressor Mark II, whilst it's upside down, a big boost of speed in the direction the Oppressor Mark II is upside down in. As you can see on screen, this footage is kind of very weird. But if you want to look at a tutorial on how to fly this thing upside down, definitely check the Met Pro channel. He has got an amazing tutorial on how to fly this thing. But beyond that, what makes the Oppressor Mark II being upside down so effective is the fact that you can dodge any missile pretty much in the game. Because of how fast you can go whilst upside down, the missiles simply cannot keep up with you, and you'll be able to dodge it before it blows you up. Not only that, you are basically more maneuverable than any vehicle in the entire game. You'll be able to outfly jets, the fastest helicopters, jetpacks, whatever in the entire game. And with this all combined, you still have the utility of a regular Oppressor Mark II. You still have the chaff, the ultra accurate missiles, and the fact that you can spawn it in wherever you want. With this tactic and a bit of skill, you are basically unkillable in this game. This one is definitely one you need to master, and I cannot implore you enough to try this out. You won't regret it. Now with that, we're almost done, but of course we have one more tactic left. This one is arguably the best one in the entire game. Now of course there are many ways of playing GTA Online. Many are good, many are bad, many are better than one another. But with this one, you will have the best experience possible. This is what I like to call not playing the game at all. You see, if you don't play the game, there is a whole world outside that you may never have even seen. There is this thing, right, called grass. It's absolutely amazing. It's green, you can run your hand through it, and it's very soft. You can sit on it, you can run across it, and if you've never ever seen this phenomenon before, you should definitely try it out. All you have to do is stop playing GTA Online. With that, of course, the video is at an end. This was a very long journey looking at the entirety of the tactics you can use in GTA Online. Which one was your favourite? Which one did you hate the most? Was there any you think I missed? Be sure to comment all of this down below. But with that, I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.